Autopilot. If you do it consistency and keep
Nah,
doing
but
what you're
that's the
doing,
part where it's like I have to not just keep doing what I'm doing. You have to keep doing what you're doing while constantly reinventing what you're doing at the same time. So consistency, yes, I'm gonna keep doing the interviews, but at the same
but keep
time,
doing what you're doing in the sense of like you've been evolving
yeah.
this whole nine
So
months.
that like whole part comes in. It's more like because yo like, but it comes with costs. Like you can't keep necessarily doing everything, or like, maybe back in the day you felt a ways and your ego got in the way and you realized, oh, say word, there's maybe what 15 fucking English Montreal platforms, and if I have beef and I am talking this and that, and I need to be real smart about how I approach the universe. Let's say there's 2,000 English rappers in the city easily. Maybe like that's it, and with that foundation we can do a lot. And I started looking at it mad different because like I don't know. There's so much, but I just basically am now convinced that there's like multiple millions of dollars available that Quebec and Montreal have figured out how to leverage, and we just need to tap into this ecosystem they've created and just bring it to other places. Like literally what y'all are doing in a park is I didn't realize like exactly what you were doing, but I saw some footage. Like for us, we just hit the park too, and I want other people to hit parks. So like imagine if in every pocket, all the English or whatever. I don't know if y'all have French up in there. I figure you're English, but like,
Well, I was doing English, Monkey was doing French, but listen, that whole initiative is the Maison des Jeunes, like
oh,
so
say
the
word.
little youth home, like so. Short story to that, in Chamonix, all my first shows and the first places I could rap for people were Maison des Jeunes shows. So they gave me my fucking start. So when my DJ got hired for the contract from the city to do this initiative, and then Monkey got hired to do the hosting, I wasn't hired to do anything. But my DJ's like, yeah, but I know it's your part, so come true. So I came through just to show love. And Monkey was like, here, grab the mic. Like, and I just, I let him lead and I just followed along. We did little freestyle games and things like that nature. And then like went back the week after, did it again. I missed a week because I had too much shit to do. But then I went back like this week and fuck, I even did like a little show. Like I brought my show set and I did like four joints like live for them, and we just turned it up a notch. But like all the props of that goes from again Monkey's relationship and his reputation precedes him. So when events like this hire somebody as talented as Monkey, it's already a blessing. But then they bring it to my neighborhood, which usually doesn't get that kind of attention. So my neighborhood is known for like nowadays is known for two things, like Carrefour Laval, because it's like the second biggest mall in Quebec or whatever, and like basically like Scratch for a while. Like it was Scratch was a hot spot for a while, but like at the end of the day, we weren't, nobody was coming to do shows. Now we have the Place Bell. Like you said, you went to see Wu Tang in Laval. I was there. Like, dude, for Wu Tang to be in my hood was madness for me as like the teenage me inside screamed like a little girl. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was something because that's the Place Bell is basically the limit of where Chamonix ends and Pont Vieux begins, basically,
Yeah, but it is kind
or
of wild that
Laval de Rapide. Yeah.
like it's wild to think now that at the end of the day, Laval is just an extension of Montreal, all things considered. Like I know it's its own distinct thing,
It
but it's
always,
not. But
but
it's
it's always has been.
but
Like,
it's like
dude,
not
Chamonix
that
is
different
one
than
bridge.
like NDG being its own distinct thing. Like it'd be wild to just compare NDG to like any other part of the town and act like it's the same shit. Like it's just everything's so wildly different here, and it's
But it's
like,
a lot like a borough because for Chamonix, and like I went to high school next to this bridge, but the La Chapelle Bridge is connecting Chamonix and Cartierville.
which is like you guys are closer to each other. Yo, when I used to
It's
like,
a 5 minute walk across the
but
bridge
like what's
to
crazy
get to
to me is
Cartierville.
like when I
So
lived in I was living in Dollard. Yeah, in Dollard. I was able to order from the Pindelli's Pizza in Chamonix. That was able to come to my crib, right? And now like it's wild, right? Just to think that
Highway
that
13,
because it's
because it's on
closer
Highway 13.
geographically, but like it really is a car thing. It wasn't until they made the metro out there that I ever once thought about ever going to Laval on some like
The metro's in
logistic.
my hood. the Montmorency Metro, again, like that and Place Belle, that's the end of Chomedy right there. So like so Chomedy is basically like a square boxed in by highways. So we on the left we have the 13, on the right we have the 15, and on the north we have the 440, and then it's the river. So the rest of Laval is kind of split up. We're like the heart of
So yeah,
Laval. Like Chomedy is
when you're
basically like
like
the first
on the
street corner in
13,
Laval was in Chomedy.
so like when you're going north on the 13, the first exit, that's Shamedy?
Yeah, the Notre Dame exit or
So,
Samson
so,
exit.
so
Yeah.
s- my first ever smash a car into a pole moment in my life happened in Shamedy. Right off, I was with my. It wasn't like that bad, but I was with my mom. I had my learner's permit. We get off there, and I go right into the fucking pole. Like she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Because you're nervous, you're driving for like the first time.
Yeah.
And I was at the gas
I
station
experienced. I
right
only
off the
experienced
fucking
that like a
exit.
year and a half ago, so I feel you. Not the smashing the pole, but the learning how to drive. I didn't drive or have a license until I was 39 years old,
Get
38
it?
years old.
It must
Yeah,
be
man. That
amazing.
I had a car accident when I was 21. Made me never want to drive again, and I wasn't even the driver. But it gave me so much anxiety, I couldn't. And 2 years ago, like I started the process and beat the anxiety, and never been happier. But like, face your fears, bro. Like, take the shit you're most scared of and fucking do it, because like at the end of the day, it's nothing. Like I sat there and feared that shit for 20 years. I could have been fucking driving and having a blast.
Yeah, I felt that
You
way
know what I
about
mean?
cycling in the streets for a minute, and now, like, honestly, the Dakari underpass ain't a thing to me. Just jump on that shit, ride it. Sometimes I'm like, am I allowed to drive here? Like, I'll be doing some Cote de Lion, and I'm like, this kind of looks like highway. It's not. It is actually where you're supposed to go, but it's so easy to accidentally end up on the highway if you take the wrong turn. It's
Yeah.
fucking. But then you're like, yeah, but it's so much faster. I'm gonna run it still. And then you're like, I feel like there's just this higher, because then you start doing shit like that, right? I don't know. For me, it's bold to cycle in the traffic. I like doing it. It makes me feel more bold. But then that just translates into all kinds of shit, right? Like, I feel bolder. Like, yo, I cycled to Meticulous's crib. I cycled back. I fell off, almost home. I had to go fucking a while in pain. But I did that shit. I'm like, say a word. Fuck that. I can handle a lot more in life. Like those are like those moments to me that are the best. You know?
I've done long walks back home from Montreal. Bro, before I had a car, so there's no night buses in Laval at all, right? So what happens is I go do a show downtown. I get out at 3 in the morning. There's no way for me to get home, but there's one night bus that goes to Cartierville, right to the bridge. So I would have to get off at 3:30, 3:45 in the morning, walk across the bridge in the middle of the night, which is some fucking scary ass shit. Because like there's a
Sorry,
point of no return.
that was a good comment we just got. Every Lavalian says the same story, lol.
Yeah, well, people hate on Laval way too much, man. You got to live there to love it. But yeah, I used to have to walk across that bridge. But the problem is, there's a point on that bridge. It's like a point of no return. Like once you're in the middle, so your people who would rob you would come from each side of the bridge. That'd be the setup. So you have to watch yourself at night, like take off your headphones, whatever. Like, it's like the fucking weirdest moment. But yeah, man,
Bonnie,
like,
hold
man,
on,
I can't
hold
count
on.
how many shows I
Bonnie,
had to get home
does
from.
everyone have that part of the story? I never heard that shit before.
I've seen one person get robbed. I'm not saying it's a fucking everyday occurrence, like, you know what I mean? But it's happened.
Ah,
Trust me, man.
Dialect said,
But don't be real. Somebody has a bad history of people getting robbed, but that's back in the day. But that's only because you would show up to a place and it'd be like the McDonald's and it'd be like everybody from the neighborhood in the same parking lot. Friday night, like, because there was the Recreatech, which is what Chomedy was known for at the time. At the
Yo,
roller
let's be
rink, the
real. The
arcade,
Recreatech is that moment where a lot of Montreal people went there for the first time and said, "Wait, say
yeah,
a word. This is yo." I remember distinctly going. First of all, roller skating is cool. Like you just kind of go, roller skating is cool, but it's in Laval, because I don't think there was
yeah.
really anything in Montreal that was quite like that.
No, you had to go there. It's one of the places where I did my one of my first shows in that roller rink because they had a stage. So like, bro, but the McDee's parking lot shared the parking lot with the rec. So people who came from Montreal, went to the rec protect would be like, "Yo, I didn't know y'all got down like this." Like cars lined up, like I mean, just like the party was in the parking lot, like. And man, fuck, those were some wild days, man. But like the thing about Chamonix is it's always been a weird dichotomy of very rich and very poor because as you come into Chamonix, you're in basically from the last fall bridge, you're basically the hood. To the point where the street where I grew up, like there was fucking prostitutes on the fucking corner by the Chamonix Inn, super well known. It's a little bit better now, thank God for that. Internet age and all, they don't need to be on the street anymore. But like, you get past like Scratch and that little shopping center, and you start moving up in price. And by the time you get to near the 440, the houses are like 600, 700 dollars. Like it's a weird dichotomy of like different classes, but it's no different than growing up anywhere. Like I've told stories
like
and I tell people it's the same everywhere. Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. Like Chamonix is no different. Like I'll tell Chamonix stories and people actually, I've had somebody say, "Man, you really think Chamonix is different?" I'm like, no, it's the opposite. Chamonix is the same as everywhere. Everybody's got a poor, middle, rich class. Every neighborhood has it. Wherever you go, from the fucking if you go to fucking LaSalle, there's the nice houses, there's the apartments, there's the condos, there's the cheaper apartments, the ghetto apartments. It doesn't matter where you go. Like you're not seeing everything new. The perspective you get is the people. For me is like when I would come to Montreal and be like I'm from Chamonix, they'd be like, oh, you're from the suburbs. Like it was the first thing because you think you're off the island, so you're not from the city, you're from the suburbs.
Honestly, I don't think Chamonix and go anything but houses. It's because my dad worked for like an old guy in Chamonix, so he would like take care of him and shit. So we're talking like I would go to this place sometimes, and it's like obviously this guy could afford my dad, so he had money, and you know like it was just of his niceness and Chinois. You go to Chinois in the morning for breakfast, and it's like a certain vibe, you know.
Yeah.
And
Dude, I still live 2 minutes from where Chinois was. Like I grew up. That's where I grew up around Chinois. Like the thing about Chamonix is like so there's a very big so west of Laval and Notre Dame, it's all like Greeks, a lot of Greeks. Chamonix was very, very Greek, especially in the past. Like there's a whole part of the neighborhood that's almost all just Greeks. Like, and so depending on the parks you would go to, you get different energy, different type of people. Like Kennedy Park was where the street shit would go down a lot of the times, but Kennedy was kind of barraged in between like duplexes around it. So you don't really like it doesn't look like you're going to the hood. You're not going to the hood park. And in my park Pizzis was pretty much that was wild out. There was Saint Martin Park, like so but like all these parks, like they're hidden in between the most suburban of Chamonix, but Pizzis next to it, there's a bunch of little houses, and then you get to where it's actual projects, like co-op buildings. And they just had to tear down an entire like 3 blocks because of black mold, so they're rebuilding them now, like the HLMs they call them there. But like, there's still a whole part of Chamonix that like, you know, a bunch of little co-ops. They all share the same back alley parking lot. Like the ghetto kids of Chamonix all grew up there, and the park next to it was Pizzis, so everybody would just show up there. Like, man, Saint Martin Park was like one thing. Every park had a different purpose. Like we had a little park behind a restaurant that nobody could see. So where we went, we wanted to lay low from the cops. Like every place had a story. But what's funny about Chamonix when it comes to Laval is Labelle and Saint Martin Boulevard. That corner is actually the first street corner in Laval to ever exist. Like Laval used to be just that intersection when it was La Barre à Plouf, like a old fucking town. Like that corner was the only fucking street, the only intersection. That was it.